In a glittering ballroom filled with millionaires and socialites, 200 pairs of eyes fixed on a single figure. A man in a janitor's uniform sat at a grand piano worth more than he earned in 5 years. The room held its breath. Champagne glasses paused mid-air. Cell phones tilted to capture what everyone expected would be a humiliating spectacle. But what happened next would shatter every assumption in that room. What happened next would remind everyone present that the human soul cannot be measured by a paycheck, that genius doesn't wear designer labels, and that the person you dismiss today might teach you the most profound lesson tomorrow. This is the story of Marcus Bennett. And this is the moment that changed everything. But to understand how we arrived at this extraordinary moment, we need to go back. We need to understand who Marcus really was, and how a man with such an incredible gift ended up pushing a mop in the middle of the night. It's 2:30 in the morning in downtown Chicago, and while most of the city sleeps, Marcus Bennett is wide awake. The 52nd floor of Carson Tower gleams under the harsh fluorescent lights as he guides his industrial vacuum across the marble floors. His movements are methodical, practiced, efficient. He's been doing this for 10 years now, and he knows every corner of this building like he knows the lines on his own weathered hands. Marcus is 42 years old, but the lines on his face tell the story of a man who's lived twice that long. His dark eyes carry a weight that most people never notice. Why would they? To the executives who rush past him during shift changes, he's invisible. Just another part of the building's machinery. Just the guy who empties the trash and buffs the floors while they're home in their suburban mansions sleeping in beds that cost more than his monthly rent. But Marcus doesn't complain. He's never been the complaining type. He shows up every night at 10 p.m. sharp, clocks in, and works until 6 a.m. 8 hours of physical labor that leaves his back aching and his hands raw. Then he drives home to his small apartment in Englewood just in time to wake up his 12-year-old daughter, Emma, for school. Emma is Marcus's entire world. She's the reason he gets up every morning after only sleeping 3 or 4 hours. She's the reason he works a job that most people wouldn't give a second thought to. And she's the reason he keeps going day after day, night after night, year after year. This morning, like every morning, Marcus parks his 15-year-old Honda Civic in front of their apartment building. The neighborhood isn't the best, but it's what he can afford on a janitor's salary. He climbs the 3 flights of stairs, his knees protesting with each step, and quietly unlocks the door. Inside the apartment is small, but immaculately clean. Marcus may clean offices for a living, but his own home is his pride. Everything has its place. The furniture is old, but well-maintained. On the wall, there's a collage of Emma's school photos tracking her growth from a gap-toothed 6-year-old to the bright-eyed preteen she is now. And there, in the corner of the living room, sits something that seems out of place in this modest home. A keyboard. Not a grand piano, not even an upright. Just a simple electronic keyboard that Marcus bought secondhand 5 years ago for $50. Marcus pauses as he passes it, as he does every morning. His fingers itch to touch the keys, but he restrains himself. Not now. Emma needs to get up for school. There will be time later after she leaves before he tries to catch a few hours of sleep. He gently opens Emma's bedroom door. She's curled up under a blanket covered in stars, her dark hair spread across the pillow. For a moment, Marcus just watches her sleep, and his heart aches with a love so fierce it almost physically hurts. She looks so much like her mother. Same high cheekbones, same long lashes, same peaceful expression when she sleeps. "Hey, sweetheart," Marcus whispers gently, touching her shoulder. "Time to get up." Emma stirs, groaning softly. "5 more minutes, Dad." Marcus smiles. You said that yesterday. Come on, I'll make you breakfast. As Emma drags herself out of bed, Marcus moves to the kitchen and starts preparing her favorite breakfast: scrambled eggs and toast. Nothing fancy, but made with love. As the eggs sizzle in the pan, his mind drifts, as it often does, to another time. Another life. 20 years ago, Marcus Bennett wasn't a janitor. 20 years ago, his name was spoken with awe in the classical music world. At 22, he was on the verge of becoming one of the great concert pianists of his generation. He'd grown up in Detroit, in a neighborhood even tougher than where he lives now. His mother worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table after his father left. They had nothing. But one day, when Marcus was 8 years old, his elementary school got a donation of used instruments, including an old, battered, upright piano. The music teacher, Mrs. Patterson, placed Marcus's small hands on the keys during recess, showing him middle C. And something magical happened. Something clicked in Marcus's young mind. The piano wasn't just an instrument to him. It was a language he'd been born speaking, but never knew existed. Within 6 months, Marcus was playing pieces that students twice his age struggled with. Within a year, Mrs. Patterson was calling him a prodigy. By the time he was 15, he'd won every youth competition in Michigan. And at 17, he received a full scholarship to the Juilliard School in New York City. Juilliard. The dream of every serious classical musician. Marcus studied under masters practiced 8 hours a day, performed in prestigious venues. At 21, he gave his debut recital at Weill Recital Hall at Carnegie Hall. The reviews called him breathtaking extraordinary, a once-in-a-generation talent. But life, Marcus learned, doesn't care about your potential. Life has its own plans. At 23, with his career taking off, Marcus made a decision that would alter everything. His mother had fallen ill. The medical bills were crushing, and his country was at war. The military offered a signing bonus that would pay for his mother's treatment. They offered stability. They offered purpose. So Marcus enlisted. He put his piano career on hold, planning to serve 1 tour and return to music. But 1 tour became 2, then 3. By the time he was 25, he was a sergeant in the United States Army deployed to Afghanistan, and he hadn't touched a piano in 2 years. It was during his second deployment that he met Sarah, an Army nurse from Ohio. She was beautiful, compassionate, and understood the weight he carried. They fell in love in the middle of a war zone and married during a brief leave. When Emma was born 2 years later, Marcus felt a joy he'd never experienced, not even on stage at Carnegie Hall. But tragedy has a way of finding us no matter how far we run. When Emma was 3 years old, Sarah was diagnosed with aggressive breast cancer. Marcus was deployed at the time. He requested emergency leave, but the paperwork took weeks. By the time he made it home, Sarah had already started chemotherapy, her beautiful dark hair falling out in clumps. He stayed with her for 2 months, then had to return to his unit. It was the hardest thing he'd ever done, leaving his sick wife and young daughter. For the next year, he served his country, while his wife fought for her life half a world away. They talked on video calls when the connection was good, and Emma would hold up her drawings to the camera, and Sarah would smile, even though Marcus could see the pain in her eyes. Sarah died 3 days before Marcus's discharge date. He didn't make it home in time to say goodbye. He was 30 years old, and he'd lost the love of his life. The Army offered him grief counseling and an honorable discharge. Marcus returned to civilian life with a 4-year-old daughter, a modest military pension that wasn't enough to live on, and no idea how to restart a piano career he'd abandoned 7 years earlier. He tried. God knows he tried. He reached out to his old contacts, his former teachers, the venues where he'd once performed. But 7 years in music might as well be a lifetime. Younger pianists had taken his place. The classical music world had moved on. Nobody was interested in a washed-up former prodigy who'd been out of the game for the better part of a decade. So Marcus did what he had to do. He took whatever job he could find that would put food on the table and keep a roof over Emma's head. He worked in warehouses, drove delivery trucks, washed dishes. And then 10 years ago, he landed the night shift janitor position at Carson Tower. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady work, decent pay, and health insurance for Emma. The piano became a memory, something from another life. Marcus told himself he was fine with it. He had Emma, and that was enough. That had to be enough. But late at night, after Emma went to sleep, Marcus would sit at that cheap keyboard in the corner of the living room. He'd put on headphones so he wouldn't wake his daughter, and he'd play. Chopin nocturnes, Beethoven sonatas, Rachmaninoff concertos that required a full orchestra, which Marcus would imagine in his mind as his fingers flew across the keys. His neighbors didn't know. His co-workers didn't know. Emma didn't even fully know. She knew her dad could play piano, sure. She'd seen him plunk out simple tunes on the keyboard. But she had no idea about Juilliard, about Carnegie Hall, about the career that could have been. Marcus never told her. What was the point? That life was gone. This was reality. And reality meant getting Emma dressed for school, packing her lunch, and making sure she caught the bus on time before he collapsed into bed for a few precious hours of sleep. "Dad, are you okay?" Emma's voice breaks through his reverie. She's sitting at the small kitchen table, her backpack already packed, looking at him with concern in her eyes. Marcus realizes he's been staring into space, the spatula frozen in his hand. He forces a smile. "Yeah, baby girl. Just tired." "You ready for school?" Emma nods, but she's still watching him with those perceptive eyes. She's a smart kid, too smart sometimes. "Dad, don't forget about the school concert next month. I'm playing piano in it." Marcus's heart swells with pride. Emma has been taking piano lessons through a program at her school, funded by some charity. She's good, really good, and it fills Marcus with both joy and sadness. She has his gift. But unlike him, he's determined that she'll have the opportunities to pursue it properly, even if it means he works himself into an early grave. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," Marcus says, and he means it with every fiber of his being. After Emma leaves for school, Marcus doesn't go straight to bed like he usually does. Instead, he sits at the keyboard. He pulls up the bench, takes off the headphones this morning, and lets his fingers rest on the keys. And then he plays. Not a simple tune, not a practice exercise. He plays Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, one of the most technically demanding pieces in the classical repertoire, a piece he performed at his Carnegie Hall debut 20 years ago. His fingers remember, even after all these years. After all the mop handles and vacuum cords and trash bags, his fingers remember. The music pours out of him, and for these few precious minutes, Marcus isn't a janitor. He isn't a struggling single father. He's a pianist. He's an artist. He's the person he was always meant to be. When the piece ends, Marcus sits in silence, his hands still resting on the keys. And then, because he can't afford to be that person anymore, he stands up, closes the keyboard cover, and goes to bed. He has to work again tonight. 3 weeks later, something unusual happens at Carson Tower. The building's management announces that the penthouse ballroom will host a massive charity gala, and all building staff are invited to attend. Invited is perhaps too strong a word. When Marcus and his fellow night shift workers receive the memo, it's clear they're expected to attend. The building's owner, Richard Carson, wants to project an image of unity and inclusiveness for this high-profile event. Having the working-class staff present will make for good optics, good photographs, good publicity. Marcus has no interest in attending. The idea of spending his night off in a room full of wealthy people who look through him like he's invisible holds zero appeal. But his supervisor, a stern woman named Mrs. Chen, makes it clear that attendance is mandatory for all staff who want to keep their jobs. So Marcus agrees. He doesn't own a tuxedo, obviously, but the memo says staff can wear their uniforms. Great. He'll show up in his janitor's uniform while billionaires parade around in designer gowns and custom suits. Perfect. The night of the gala, Marcus almost calls in sick. But then Emma notices the invitation stuck to their refrigerator with a magnet. "Dad, is this for real? You're going to a fancy party?" Her eyes light up with excitement. "It's not really a party for me, sweetie. I'm just supposed to be there. But there'll be fancy food, right? And music. Dad, you have to go. You never do anything fun." Marcus looks at his daughter's eager face and can't bring himself to dampen her enthusiasm. "All right, I'll go, but just for a couple of hours." Emma hugs him tight. "Take pictures, I want to see everything." On the night of the gala, Marcus puts on his clean uniform, the navy blue jumpsuit with Carson Tower maintenance embroidered on the chest. He takes the service elevator up to the penthouse, emerging into a world that might as well be on another planet. The ballroom is stunning. Crystal chandeliers hang from a ceiling painted with elaborate frescoes. Floor-to-ceiling windows offer breathtaking views of Chicago's nighttime skyline. Round tables covered in white silk surround a central dance floor. And at the far end of the room, on a raised platform, sits a magnificent Steinway grand piano, its black lacquer surface reflecting the chandelier light like still water. Marcus freezes when he sees the piano. He hasn't been this close to a real grand piano in over a decade. His fingers twitch involuntarily. Quite something, isn't it? A voice beside him makes Marcus turn. It's Rosa Martinez, one of the cleaning staff who works the day shift. She's wearing her uniform too, looking as uncomfortable as Marcus feels. "Yeah," Marcus manages. "It's something." "Come on," Rosa says, linking her arm through his. "Let's find the refreshment table. If we have to be here, we might as well eat their fancy food." The ballroom fills quickly with guests. Men in tuxedos that cost more than Marcus's car. Women in evening gowns that sparkle with what Marcus suspects are real diamonds. They air-kiss each other's cheeks, laugh too loudly at jokes that aren't funny, and accept champagne flutes from servers with the casual entitlement of people who've never had to worry about money a day in their lives. The staff, in their various uniforms, cluster awkwardly near the edges of the room. They're props in someone else's production, and everyone knows it. Photographers circle the room carefully, composing shots that include just enough uniformed workers to demonstrate Carson's supposed commitment to equality, but not so many that they dominate the frame. Richard Carson himself holds court at the center of the room. He's 55, silver-haired, with the kind of tan that comes from winter vacations in the Caribbean. His tuxedo probably costs more than Marcus earns in 6 months. He's surrounded by a cluster of similarly wealthy people, all laughing at something he's said. "That's him," Rosa whispers to Marcus. "Richard Carson. Billionaire, real estate mogul, and apparently tonight philanthropist." The sarcasm in her voice is thick. As Marcus watches a woman approaches Carson's group, she's probably in her mid-40s, blonde, wearing a red dress that likely cost 5 figures. Her jewelry catches the light with every movement. She's laughing at something, her hand resting possessively on Carson's arm. "That's Victoria Ashford." Rosa continues her commentary. "Old money, society queen. She's on the board of half the charities in Chicago, Or at least she likes to be photographed with charity cases. Marcus isn't really listening. His attention keeps drifting back to the piano. From his vantage point near the wall, he can see it clearly. It's a Steinway Model D, the Concert Grand, the same model that graces the stages of the world's greatest concert halls. His fingers ache with the memory of such an instrument beneath his hands. The evening drags on. Dinner is served, but the staff aren't invited to sit at the silk-covered tables. They're directed to a separate area where they can eat quickly and discreetly. The food is incredible, probably the best meal Marcus has had in years, but it tastes like ashes in his mouth. He doesn't belong here, and every passing minute makes that more obvious. After dinner, Richard Carson takes the stage. He taps a microphone, and the room quiets. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight. Your presence and your generosity mean the world to our cause. He launches into a speech about the charity they're supporting, something about underprivileged youth. The irony isn't lost on Marcus. He's standing in a room full of people who could change lives with what they spend on jewelry, listening to speeches about helping the poor. And now Carson continues, we were supposed to have entertainment this evening. Renowned pianist David Chen was scheduled to perform. Unfortunately, David called this afternoon. Apparently, he's caught a nasty flu and can't make it. A disappointed murmur runs through the crowd. Marcus's attention sharpens. A pianist was supposed to perform. On that Steinway. His heart beats faster. So, I'm afraid we'll have to make do without musical entertainment tonight, Carson says with an apologetic shrug. Unless anyone here happens to be a secret concert pianist. The crowd laughs politely at what's clearly meant as a joke. But then Victoria Ashford's voice rings out, bright and mocking. Oh, Richard, don't be silly. I'm sure someone here must know how to play. Her eyes scan the room, and Marcus feels his stomach drop as her gaze lands on the cluster of uniformed workers. What about our hard-working staff? Surely one of them has hidden talents. More laughter from the wealthy guests. It's meant as a joke, a bit of light mockery. The idea that a janitor or a security guard could play a concert grand piano is absurd to them. Hilarious, even. But Victoria isn't done. She's had several glasses of champagne, and she's enjoying being the center of attention. She walks toward the staff area, her heels clicking on the marble floor, and her eyes lock onto Marcus. You there, she says, pointing at him with her champagne flute. You look like you might be musical. What do you say? Want to give it a try? The room goes quiet. Every eye turns to Marcus. He can feel his face burning. This is humiliation, masquerading as inclusion. She doesn't actually think he can play. She's making fun of him, using him for entertainment the way you might ask a dog to do a trick. I don't think that's a good idea, ma'am, Marcus says quietly, trying to make himself invisible. Oh, come on, Victoria insists, her voice dripping with false encouragement. Don't be modest. I'm sure you know something. Chopsticks, maybe. Heart and soul. The crowd titters at her joke. Rosa grabs Marcus's arm, her grip tight. You don't have to do this, she whispers urgently. But Richard Carson has joined Victoria now, and he's smiling the smile of a man who finds this whole situation amusing. Actually, I think it's a wonderful idea. Come on, friend. Give it a shot. What's your name, Marcus, sir? Marcus Bennett. Well, Marcus, how about it? You ever played piano before? Every instinct in Marcus screams at him to refuse to excuse himself to escape this situation. These people don't actually want to hear him play. They want to watch him fail. They want to see the janitor make a fool of himself trying to play an instrument worth more than his annual salary. But then Marcus sees movement near the entrance. Emma. His daughter is here, having somehow convinced her friend's mother to bring her by. She must have wanted to see the fancy party her dad was attending. She's standing just inside the door, her eyes wide, and she's filming on her phone, probably planning to live stream this to her friends. Emma sees him see her. She waves her face full of excitement and pride that her dad is the center of attention at this glamorous event. She has no idea what's really happening. She thinks this is an honor, not a humiliation. And in that moment, Marcus makes a decision. Not for these wealthy people who think they're so much better than him. Not for Richard Carson or Victoria Ashford or any of their society friends. But for Emma. For his daughter who deserves to know who her father really is. Who deserves to know where her musical gift comes from. Who deserves to see that her dad isn't just a janitor. He's so much more than that. Marcus gently extricates himself from Rosa's grip. He looks at Richard Carson and nods. Yes, sir. I've played before. The crowd erupts in laughter and applause, the kind you'd give a child who's about to attempt something adorably beyond their abilities. Victoria claps her hands together in delight. Oh, this is going to be marvelous. Someone film this. Everyone get your phones out. Dozens of phones rise into the air as Marcus walks toward the stage. The crowd parts for him, their expressions a mix of amusement and condescension. He can hear their whispered comments. This should be entertaining. Poor guy, he has no idea what he's in for. At least it'll be funny. How much you want to bet he can play chopsticks? Marcus climbs the 3 steps to the stage. The piano looms before him, beautiful and intimidating. He hasn't sat at a real grand piano since his mother's funeral 14 years ago, when he played a simple hymn because it was what she would have wanted. He approaches the bench and sits down carefully, as if the piano might shatter under his weight. The bench is at the wrong height for him. He adjusts it, and there's something in the precision of his adjustment that makes a few people in the crowd exchange glances. That's not how an amateur adjusts a piano bench. Marcus places his hands on the keys. The ivory is cool and smooth under his calloused fingers. These are working man's hands now, rough and scarred from years of physical labor. But they remember. God, how they remember. He looks out at the crowd. 200 people watching him, most of them expecting a train wreck. Victoria Ashford is front and center, her phone already recording a smirk on her face. Richard Carson stands beside her, arms crossed, mildly curious about what will happen next. And there by the door is Emma, his daughter, his world. She's stopped recording and is just watching him, her expression full of trust and love. She believes in him even if no one else in this room does. Marcus takes a deep breath, and then he begins to play. The first notes that emerge from the Steinway grand piano are soft, almost tentative. Marcus's right hand plays a simple melody, the opening bars of Debussy's Clair de Lune. It's a piece most people recognize even if they don't know its name. Moonlight in musical form. For the first few seconds, the laughter continues. This is what they expected after all. A janitor who knows one famous song, probably learned from YouTube videos, probably about to make mistakes, any second now. But then something happens that wipes the smirks off their faces. Marcus's left hand joins his right, and suddenly the music isn't simple anymore. It's complex, layered, sophisticated. His fingers move across the keys with a speed and precision that shouldn't be possible for someone who's supposed to be an amateur. The laughter dies. Conversations stop mid-sentence. Champagne glasses pause halfway to lips. Every eye in the ballroom locks onto the man in the janitor's uniform, who is making this multi-million-dollar piano sing. Marcus isn't just playing the notes. He's interpreting them, breathing life into them, making them tell a story. His hands dance across the keyboard, moving from tender whispers to passionate crescendos and back again. His entire body moves with the music, swaying gently, completely absorbed in the piece. He plays Clair de Lune for about 3 minutes, and when he finishes, there's a moment of stunned silence. Then, before anyone can react, before anyone can applaud or speak or process what just happened, Marcus transitions seamlessly into another piece. This one is harder, much harder. Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor. It's a piece that takes professional pianists years to master. It requires technical precision, emotional depth, and physical endurance. It's 9 minutes of unrelenting difficulty with passages so fast they blur the line between human capability and impossibility. And Marcus plays it flawlessly. His fingers fly across the keys, executing runs and trills that require years of practice to achieve. The music alternates between delicate, almost fragile phrases and thunderous, passionate outbursts. Marcus's face is completely relaxed, almost serene. This isn't difficult for him. This is home. This is who he is. Victoria Ashford's phone slips slightly in her hand. She's no longer smirking. Her mouth has fallen open in disbelief. Around her, people are beginning to whisper, but this time the whispers aren't mocking. They're awestruck. Who is he? Where did he learn to play like that? That's not possible. How is that possible? Richard Carson's arms have uncrossed. He's moved closer to the stage, his expression no longer amused or condescending. He looks stunned, almost disturbed, like someone has just revealed that reality isn't what he thought it was. Rosa Martinez, standing near the back of the room, has tears streaming down her face. She's worked alongside Marcus for 5 years and never knew, never had any idea. And Emma by the door has her hand pressed over her mouth. She's crying too, but her eyes are shining with something that looks like revelation. She's seeing her father really seeing him for the first time. Marcus transitions from Chopin to Rachmaninoff, from Rachmaninoff to Beethoven, from Beethoven to Liszt. He plays pieces that would fill an entire concert hall program. His fingers never stumble, never hesitate, never falter. 20 years might have passed since he last performed professionally, but his muscle memory is perfect. The music has been sleeping inside him all this time, waiting for this moment. As he plays Liszt's La Campanella, one of the most technically demanding pieces in the piano repertoire, something shifts in the room. The initial shock has given way to something deeper. People are no longer just impressed. They're moved. Many are crying openly now. The music isn't just technically perfect, it's emotionally devastating. Marcus is pouring every ounce of his pain, his loss, his sacrifice, his love for his daughter into these keys. The ballroom, which 20 minutes ago was filled with idle chatter and clinking glasses, has become a concert hall. This is no longer a joke or a spectacle. This is art. This is transcendent. A woman near the front collapses into her chair, overcome. A man in a tuxedo that costs more than Marcus's car stands with tears running unchecked down his face. Victoria Ashford's phone has long since been lowered. She's just watching transfixed, her carefully composed society mask cracked wide open. Marcus plays for 35 minutes straight. He performs pieces by 7 different composers covering 3 centuries of classical music. His hands never tire. His concentration never wavers. He's lost in the music, remembering Carnegie Hall, remembering Juilliard, remembering the person he used to be, the person he still is underneath the uniform, and the job title, and the years of pretending. For these 35 minutes, Marcus Bennett isn't a janitor. He's a virtuoso. He's an artist. He's a master. And everyone in this room knows they're witnessing something extraordinary, something they'll talk about for the rest of their lives. the night a janitor walked onto a stage and played like a god. Finally, inevitably, the music must end. Marcus has chosen to conclude with Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat Major Op. 9. Number 2. It's a piece of heartbreaking beauty, tender and melancholic, like a lullaby for a world that's lost its innocence. He plays it slowly, savoring every note, because once it's over, he'll have to return to reality. The final notes hang in the air like morning mist gradually fading into silence. Marcus's hands rest on the keys for a moment longer, and then he lifts them away. He sits perfectly still on the bench, his head slightly bowed, his eyes closed. The ballroom is silent. 200 people barely breathe. The moment stretches suspended in time, perfect and fragile. And then from the back of the room, a single pair of hands begins to clap. It's Emma. She's clapping through her tears, clapping so hard her hands must hurt. Her face is radiant with pride and love and wonder. The sound breaks the spell. Suddenly, everyone is applauding. But this isn't polite cocktail party applause. This is thunderous, overwhelming, cathartic applause. People are on their feet, a standing ovation that shakes the chandeliers. They're clapping, crying, shouting. Some are embracing each other, as if they've all just survived something together, which in a way they have. They've survived having their assumptions destroyed, their prejudices exposed, their comfortable worldview shattered. Marcus opens his eyes. He looks out at the crowd, and for a moment he looks confused, as if he's forgotten where he is. Then reality settles back over him like a heavy coat. He's in a ballroom. He's wearing a janitor's uniform. He just played piano for 200 strangers who thought he was nothing. He stands up from the bench slowly, almost reluctantly. He's not sure what to do. Should he bow? Should he just leave? He never wanted this attention. He just wanted to show his daughter who he really was. But before he can decide, Richard Carson is climbing the stage stairs. The billionaire's face is pale, his expression complex and difficult to read. He approaches Marcus and stops a few feet away. "Who are you?" Carson asks, and his voice is quiet, almost reverent. "Really? Who are you?" Marcus swallows hard. "I'm a janitor, Mr. Carson. I work the night shift. I clean your floors." "No." Carson shakes his head firmly. "No, you're not. I mean, you might do that work, but that's not who you are. Where did you learn to play like that?" The applause has quieted now. Everyone is leaning in, desperate to hear the answer to this question. Who is this man? What is his story? Marcus looks out at the crowd. He sees Victoria Ashford no longer smirking but crying openly, her makeup running down her face. He sees Rosa beaming at him with fierce pride. He sees his supervisor, Mrs. Chen, her mouth hanging open in shock. He sees all the wealthy guests who looked through him like he was invisible just an hour ago now staring at him like he's the most important person in the world. And he sees Emma pushing through the crowd, now running toward the stage. She takes the stairs 2 at a time and throws herself into his arms. Marcus catches her, holds her tight, and feels her tears soaking through his uniform. "Dad," she whispers into his chest. "Dad, you never told me. You never told me you could play like that." "I didn't want you to know," Marcus whispers back, his own voice breaking. "That life is gone, baby. I'm just your dad now." "No." Emma pulls back to look up at him, and there's fire in her 12-year-old eyes. "You're not just my dad. You're amazing. You're the most amazing person I've ever known." Richard Carson clears his throat gently. "I don't mean to interrupt, but I think everyone here would very much like to hear your story, if you're willing to share it." Marcus looks at his daughter. Emma nods encouragingly, squeezing his hand. He takes a deep breath and turns to face the crowd. 200 faces watch him, and this time they're really seeing him. not a janitor. A person. A human being with a story worth hearing. My name is Marcus Bennett. He begins, his voice amplified by the microphone that someone has thrust into his hand. I'm 42 years old. I work the night shift as a janitor here at Carson Tower. And 20 years ago, I was a pianist. Marcus stands on the stage, his daughter Emma, still holding his hand, facing a sea of expectant faces. This isn't how he imagined his evening would go. This isn't how he imagined his secret would ever come out. But there's no going back now. The truth is demanding to be told. I grew up in Detroit. Marcus continues, his voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. My mother worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table. We had nothing. But when I was 8 years old, my school got a donated piano, and my music teacher, Mrs. Patterson, put my hands on the keys. He pauses, remembering that moment. The cool ivory under his small fingers, the way the sound resonated through his chest when he pressed down on that first note. The sense that he'd been sleeping his whole life and was finally waking up. Something happened that day. I can't explain it. The piano wasn't just an instrument to me. It was like a language I'd been born speaking but never knew existed. Within 6 months, I was playing pieces that took other students years to learn. By the time I was 15, I'd won every competition in Michigan. The crowd is completely silent, hanging on every word. Victoria Ashford has moved closer to the stage, her earlier mockery replaced by genuine engagement. Richard Carson stands to the side, his arms crossed, but not defensively now. He looks like a man reassessing everything he thought he knew. At 17, I got a full scholarship to the Juilliard School in New York, Marcus says, and there's a collective intake of breath from the crowd. Juilliard. The name carries weight. It's the most prestigious music conservatory in America, perhaps in the world. I studied under some of the greatest pianists alive. I practiced 8, sometimes 10 hours a day. Music wasn't just what I did. It was who I was. Emma squeezes his hand tighter. She's hearing this story for the first time too, and tears are streaming down her face. At 21, I gave my debut recital at Carnegie Hall. Marcus continues. Not the main stage, but Weil Recital Hall, which is where young artists perform when they're on the verge of breaking through to the major circuit. The reviews were incredible. I was called a once-in-a-generation talent. I had management-interested recording contracts being discussed. At 22, I was on my way to becoming a concert pianist. So what happened? Someone in the crowd asks, unable to contain their curiosity. Why aren't I playing Carnegie Hall now instead of cleaning toilets? Marcus finishes the question that nobody wanted to say out loud. That's what you all want to know, isn't it? He takes a deep breath. This is the hard part, the part that still hurts even after all these years. At 23, my mother got sick. Really sick. Stage 4 cancer. The treatment was expensive, far beyond what insurance would cover. I had no money. I was a classical musician. We don't make money unless we're already famous. And I wasn't there yet. I was close, but close doesn't pay medical bills. Marcus can feel the weight of every eye in the room. They're not judging now. They're understanding. At the same time, my country was at war. The military was offering signing bonuses. Good money. Enough to pay for my mother's treatment. And they offered something else, too. Purpose. Service. A chance to be part of something bigger than myself. He pauses, looking down at Emma, who's watching him with complete attention. So I enlisted. I put my piano career on hold. I told myself it would just be 1 tour, 3 years, and then I'd come back to music. But life doesn't work that way. 1 tour became 2, then 3. My mother died despite the treatment. And I met someone. Marcus's voice softens. Her name was Sarah. She was an army nurse. Beautiful, compassionate, incredible. She understood what I'd given up, and she never made me feel like I'd made the wrong choice. We fell in love in the middle of a war zone and got married during a 2-week leave. He looks at Emma again, and his eyes fill with tears. And then we had Emma, our beautiful daughter. The best thing that ever happened to me. Emma is openly sobbing now, but she doesn't let go of her father's hand. I thought that would be our happy ending, Marcus says. I'd served my country. I had a wife I loved and a daughter who was my whole world. I was going to get out of the military and restart my music career. Maybe I'd lost some ground, but I was still young enough to make it work. Sarah believed in me. She told me I was going to be great. His voice breaks. But when Emma was 3, Sarah was diagnosed with breast cancer, aggressive, fast-moving. I was deployed when we got the news. I requested emergency leave, but it took weeks for the paperwork to go through. By the time I got home, she'd already started chemotherapy. The ballroom is so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Several people are crying openly, not just for Marcus's story, but for the weight of it, the unfairness of it. I stayed with her for 2 months, then had to go back to my unit. For the next year, I served overseas while my wife fought for her life. We'd video chat when we could. Emma would hold up her drawings to show me. Sarah would smile for the camera, but I could see the pain in her eyes, the way the treatment was destroying her. Marcus has to stop for a moment, compose himself. Even after 12 years, this part still feels like an open wound. Sarah died 3 days before my discharge date. I didn't make it home in time to say goodbye. I was 30 years old. I had a 4-year-old daughter who'd just lost her mother, and I had no idea how to restart a career I'd abandoned 7 years earlier. He looks out at the crowd, meeting their eyes. I tried. I want you all to know that I tried. I reached out to everyone I'd known at Juilliard, all my old contacts, the venues where I'd performed. But 7 years in classical music might as well be a lifetime. Younger pianists had taken my place. The music world had moved on. Nobody was interested in a former prodigy who'd been out of the game for nearly a decade. So I did what I had to do, Marcus says simply. I took whatever job I could get that would pay the bills and keep a roof over Emma's head. I worked in warehouses, drove trucks, washed dishes. And 10 years ago I got hired here as a janitor. It's honest work. It pays enough. It gives Emma health insurance. It's not glamorous, but it's what I can do. He gestures around the ballroom. Most of you walk past me every day and never see me. I empty your trash cans, vacuum your offices, clean your bathrooms. To you, I'm invisible. Just another part of the building's machinery. And that's okay. I'm not telling you this story to make you feel guilty. Then why are you telling us? Richard Carson asks quietly. Marcus looks at Emma. Because my daughter deserved to know who her father really is. She knows I work hard. She knows I love her. But she didn't know where her musical talent comes from. She's been taking piano lessons at school, and she's good. Really good. And tonight, she was here to see the fancy party her dad was attending. I saw her filming by the door, probably wanting to show her friends. He turns back to the crowd. When Mrs. Ashford asked me to play as a joke when everyone started laughing, I saw my daughter's face. She didn't understand that you were all mocking me. She thought it was an honor. She was proud that her dad was the center of attention. Victoria Ashford makes a small sound, almost a sob, and covers her mouth with her hand. And I realized in that moment that I was tired, Marcus says. Tired of being invisible. Tired of pretending that the most important part of who I am doesn't exist. Tired of being ashamed that I'm a janitor instead of a concert pianist. So I played. Not for you. For Emma. So she would know that her father is more than his job title. So she would know that the dreams we have when we're young don't disappear just because life takes us in different directions. He looks down at the piano, this magnificent instrument that he's been too intimidated to approach for the last decade. Music isn't what I do anymore, but it's still who I am. It's in every cell of my body. And tonight, for the first time in 12 years, I remembered what it felt like to be myself. The silence that follows Marcus's story is profound. It's not an awkward silence or an uncomfortable one. It's the silence of people who've been fundamentally changed by what they've heard. The silence of privilege confronting reality. The silence of assumptions being destroyed. Richard Carson is the first to move. He climbs fully onto the stage and extends his hand to Marcus. "Mr. Bennett, I owe you an apology. I've employed you for 10 years and never once asked your name until tonight. I've built an entire business empire on the backs of people I never bothered to see. That changes now. That has to change." Marcus shakes his hand, uncertain what to say. But Carson isn't done. He turns to address the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, we came here tonight supposedly to support underprivileged youth. We paid thousands of dollars for tickets, we'll write checks to the charity, and then we'll go home feeling good about ourselves. But Marcus Bennett just taught us something more valuable than any amount of money." He gestures to Marcus. "This man has more talent in his little finger than most of us will ever possess in our entire lives. And for 10 years he's been cleaning our floors while we walked past him without a glance. How many other Marcus Bennetts are out there? How many people with extraordinary gifts are trapped in jobs that don't begin to reflect their potential? Not because they lack talent, but because life knocked them down, and they're doing whatever they have to do to survive." The crowd is listening intently. Victoria Ashford is nodding, tears still streaming down her face. "I don't know about the rest of you," Carson continues, "but I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed that I helped create a world where a man like Marcus has to hide his light under a bushel, where genius goes unrecognized because we're too busy looking at job titles and uniforms instead of at the human beings wearing them." He turns back to Marcus. "Mr. Bennett, I can't give you back the 12 years you lost. I can't bring back your wife or restore your music career, but I can do this. As of right now, you're no longer employed as a janitor at Carson Tower. You're fired." Emma gasps. The crowd murmurs in confusion. Marcus's heart sinks. Is this punishment for embarrassing them? But Carson is smiling. "You're fired because I'm offering you a different position. As of tomorrow, you're the director of the Carson Foundation for the Arts. You'll develop and run programs to identify and support talented young people from disadvantaged backgrounds, particularly in music. Your salary will be 3 times what you're currently making with full benefits. Your job will be to make sure that other kids with your gift don't fall through the cracks the way you did." Marcus stares at him, unable to process what he's hearing. "Mr. Carson, I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Emma whispers urgently, tugging on his hand. Dad say yes. "And that's not all," Victoria Ashford suddenly speaks up, stepping onto the stage. Her face is red and blotchy from crying her carefully applied makeup. Ruined. "Marcus, I owe you an apology, a real one. What I did tonight was cruel and thoughtless. I used you for entertainment because I could, because you were just the help. And I'm so ashamed." She takes a shaky breath. "My family foundation will match Richard's salary offer and provide additional funding for your program. And I'd like to personally sponsor Emma's music education. Full scholarship to whatever school she wants, including Juilliard if that's her dream. It's the least I can do." Marcus is overwhelmed. Emma is crying so hard she can barely breathe. Rosa, watching from the floor, is openly weeping with joy. But there's one more person who needs to speak. From the back of the room, a distinguished older gentleman with silver hair makes his way forward. People part for him respectfully. He climbs the stage stairs and approaches Marcus with his hand extended. "Marcus Bennett. I thought that was you, but I couldn't believe it. It's been 20 years. Marcus stares at the man, recognition dawning slowly. "Professor Weinstein. The very same." The man smiles. "I taught you at Juilliard, if you remember. You were one of the finest students I ever had the privilege to instruct. I thought we'd lost you. After you left for the military, we heard nothing. I assumed you'd given up music entirely." I did, Marcus says quietly. I had to. But you haven't forgotten Professor Weinstein says, gesturing to the piano. What you played tonight. Marcus, you're better than you were at 21. More mature, more emotionally deep. The technique is still flawless, but now there's life experience in your playing. Pain loss, love sacrifice. You don't play like a prodigy anymore. You play like a master. He pauses, then continues. I'm retired now from teaching, but I still have connections. A great many connections. If you're interested, I can make some calls. The Cleveland Orchestra is looking for a featured soloist next season. The Philadelphia Chamber Music Society is planning a series on overlooked American pianists. And I know for a fact that Carnegie Hall would be interested in hearing about your story. Marcus feels like he's dreaming. This can't be real. Things like this don't happen to people like him. I don't know if I can, he says honestly. I have Emma. I have responsibilities. I can't just… Dad. Emma looks up at him, and despite her tears, she's smiling. Dad, you have to. You have to play again. Really play. It's who you are. But baby girl, what about you? I can't leave you to go on tour. I'll be fine, Emma insists. We'll figure it out, Dad. You gave up everything for Mom and then for me. You've been taking care of me my whole life. Let me take care of you for once. Let me be proud of my dad, the famous pianist, instead of hiding who you really are. Marcus looks around the stage, at Richard Carson offering him a job that will let him change lives. At Victoria Ashford, genuinely remorseful and wanting to make amends. At Professor Weinstein, offering to help him reclaim his career. At Rosa, beaming at him from the floor. At the 200 people who came here tonight expecting a forgettable charity gala, and instead witnessed something extraordinary. And most of all, at Emma, his daughter, his reason for everything. Looking at him with such love and pride that it breaks his heart and heals it at the same time. Okay, Marcus whispers. Then louder. Okay? Yes, I'll do it. All of it. The ballroom erupts. People are cheering, crying, applauding again. Someone starts a chant of play more, and soon the entire room has taken it up. Marcus looks at the piano, at this beautiful instrument that he's denied himself for so long. He looks at Emma. What do you say, baby girl? Want to hear your old man play one more song? Emma nods enthusiastically. Can I stay up here with you? I wouldn't have it any other way. Marcus sits back down at the piano bench. Emma sits beside him, squeezed onto the bench, her small body pressed against his side. And together, father and daughter, they play. Emma plays the simple melody she's been learning at school, and Marcus improvises accompaniment around her notes, making her simple tune sound like a symphony. The room watches in silence. This isn't about technical virtuosity now. This is about love. This is about a father and daughter making music together. This is about coming home. When they finish, Emma throws her arms around her father's neck. I love you, Dad. I'm so proud of you. I love you too, baby girl, Marcus whispers into her hair. Everything I did, everything I sacrificed, it was all worth it for you. The crowd's applause washes over them like a wave, but Marcus barely hears it. He's holding his daughter sitting at a piano, and for the first time in 12 years, he feels whole. 6 months have passed since that extraordinary night at Carson Tower, and the world has transformed for Marcus Bennett. But perhaps not in the way you might expect. The story of the janitor who shocked a billionaire's party went viral, of course. Someone in that ballroom had been live streaming, and the video spread across the internet like wildfire. Within 48 hours, Marcus's performance had been viewed 50 million times. News outlets picked up the story. Good Morning America invited him on. The New York Times wrote a feature article titled "The Invisible Virtuoso." Offers poured in. Concert halls, recording studios, talent agencies. Everyone wanted a piece of the feel-good story of the year. Marcus Bennett, the janitor, who turned out to be a piano genius, the veteran who sacrificed his career for his country, the single father who did whatever it took to provide for his daughter. It would have been easy for Marcus to get swept up in it all, to chase the fame, the money, the recognition he'd been denied for so long, to become the concert pianist he'd always dreamed of being. But Marcus had learned something in his 42 years. He'd learned that dreams change, that who you are at 22 isn't necessarily who you are at 42, and that sometimes the life you build after your dreams die is more valuable than the dream ever was. So yes, Marcus accepted some of the offers. He performed 3 concerts with Professor Weinstein's help, including one at Carnegie Hall that sold out in 6 minutes. He recorded an album of Chopin and Rachmaninoff that debuted at #1 on the classical charts. He used his moment in the spotlight to talk about veterans' issues, about the working poor, about the invisible people who keep our society running. But he also said no to most of the offers. He turned down the multi-city tour. He declined the resident position at a prestigious conservatory that would have required relocating to California. He passed on the opportunity to perform in Europe for 6 months. Because Marcus had something more important to do. The Carson Foundation for the Arts, which Marcus now directs, has become his true calling. The foundation identifies talented young people from disadvantaged backgrounds and provides them with instruments, instruction, and opportunities they would never otherwise have. In 6 months, they've helped over 200 kids. Some will become professional musicians. Most won't, but all of them will have the chance to discover if they have a gift, and none of them will go unnoticed the way Marcus did. Marcus still lives in the same apartment in Englewood. He could afford something nicer now, but Emma's school is nearby. Her friends are there, and it's home. The apartment is still small, but there's one significant addition. In place of the cheap keyboard, there's now a beautiful upright piano donated by Victoria Ashford. Emma practices on it every day after school. And Marcus? He doesn't work the night shift anymore, but he's busier than ever. His days are filled with foundation work, meeting with donors, screening scholarship applications, teaching classes at the community center. He plays piano every day now, but not for fame or money. He plays for himself, for Emma, for the pure joy of it. On this particular Saturday afternoon, Marcus is at the Carson Foundation's new facility on the south side of Chicago. It's a renovated warehouse that now houses practice rooms, classrooms, and a small recital hall. The foundation holds free concerts here every weekend, bringing classical music to a neighborhood that rarely gets to experience it. Today, Marcus is preparing for the foundation's first student showcase. 12 young musicians aged 8 to 17 will perform for an audience of family, friends, and community members. Marcus is backstage helping a nervous 10-year-old violinist tune her instrument. What if I mess up? The girl asks, her eyes wide with anxiety. Marcus smiles. Then you mess up. It's not the end of the world. You know what I learned? Mistakes are just proof that you're trying something difficult. And trying difficult things is how we grow. But everyone will be watching. They'll be watching because they care about you, Marcus says gently. They want to see you succeed. And even if you hit a wrong note or lose your place, they'll still be proud of you for having the courage to get up there and try. The girl considers this, then nods. Okay, I can do this. I know you can, Marcus says. As the girl walks toward the stage entrance, Emma appears beside her father. She's 13 now, taller than she was 6 months ago, growing up too fast. She's wearing a simple black dress, her hair pulled back. She's one of the performers today. "You nervous, baby girl?" Marcus asks. Emma shakes her head. "Not really. I mean a little. But mostly I'm excited." "Dad, there's someone here I want you to meet." She leads him to the small audience gathering in the recital hall. Most of the folding chairs are filled with parents and siblings, a mix of races and backgrounds, unified by their support for the young musicians about to perform. And there in the third row, sitting next to Rosa Martinez, is an elderly black woman with gray hair and kind eyes. "Dad," Emma says softly, "this is Mrs. Patterson." Marcus stares. The name rocks him backward in time. Mrs. Patterson. From Detroit. From my elementary school. The woman stands, and her smile is radiant. "Hello, Marcus. It's been a long time." Marcus is speechless. This is the woman who first put his hands on a piano keyboard 34 years ago. The woman who recognized his gift and nurtured it. The woman who started everything. "How did you—" Marcus can't even form the question. "I saw you on the news," Mrs. Patterson says. "I saw what happened at that party and I couldn't believe it. My Marcus. The shy little 8-year-old who couldn't afford piano lessons but practiced on that old donated upright every recess and lunch period. You made it. You really made it. I didn't—" Marcus says, his voice thick with emotion. "I mean, I tried, but life got in the way and I—" Mrs. Patterson puts her hand on his arm. "Marcus, listen to me. Making it doesn't mean becoming famous or rich. Making it means becoming who you're supposed to be. And look at you. Look at this place. Look at these children you're helping. You're doing what I did for you, but on a scale I never could have imagined." She gestures around the recital hall. "This is success, Marcus. Not Carnegie Hall. This. Giving back. Lifting up the next generation. Making sure that other gifted children don't fall through the cracks. Your music career may not have turned out the way you planned, but you've done something better. You've become a light for others." Marcus finds himself crying for the second time in 6 months. Emma wraps her arms around him from one side, and Mrs. Patterson pats his shoulder from the other. Rosa, watching from her seat, dabs at her eyes with a tissue. "Thank you," Marcus manages to say. "Thank you for seeing me when I was just a kid with nothing. Thank you for believing. Could be more. Thank you for proving me right," Mrs. Patterson replies. The showcase begins. One by one, the young musicians take the stage. A clarinetist plays Mozart, a cellist performs Bach, a teenage violinist tackles Vivaldi. Some performances are polished, some are rough, but every single one is met with enthusiastic applause from the audience. Finally, it's Emma's turn. She walks onto the stage, sits at the piano, and adjusts the bench exactly the way she's seen her father do 1,000 times. She looks out at the audience, finds Marcus, and smiles. "I'm going to play a piece called Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven," she announces. "I'm dedicating this performance to my dad, who taught me that it's never too late to be who you're meant to be." Emma plays. She's good, genuinely talented, though not at her father's level. Not yet, anyway. Maybe not ever. And that's okay. She doesn't need to be a virtuoso. She just needs to love music, and that love is evident in every note she plays. Marcus watches his daughter with tears streaming down his face. This is what it was all for. Every sacrifice, every hardship, every night of exhaustion, and every day of doubt. It was all for this moment, watching his daughter pursue her passion without the obstacles he faced, without having to choose between her dreams and survival. When Emma finishes, the applause is thunderous. She beams and bows, then runs off stage straight into her father's arms. "I did it," she exclaims. "You were perfect," Marcus tells her. "I'm so proud of you." "I'm proud of you too, Dad." After the showcase, there's a reception in the foundation's common area. Cookies and punch, folding tables, and happy chaos. The young performers are mobbing Marcus, asking questions, requesting advice, treating him like the hero he never thought he'd be. Richard Carson shows up as he does at every foundation event. The billionaire has become genuinely invested in the program, not just as a PR exercise, but as a true believer. He's talking with a parent about expanding the foundation to other cities. Victoria Ashford is there too, having volunteered to teach a class on music history and appreciation. The woman who once mocked Marcus is now one of his strongest advocates, Detective James Cooper. Marcus's old military buddy is working security for the event, but really he's just here to support his friend. He brings Marcus a cup of punch and claps him on the shoulder. "Look at you, man," James says. "From cleaning floors to changing lives. I always knew you were special." "I'm not special," Marcus protests. "I'm just a guy who got lucky." "No," James corrects him. "You're a guy who got knocked down and got back up. That's not luck. That's character." As the reception winds down and families begin to leave, Marcus finds himself alone for a moment in the recital hall. He sits at the piano, the same instrument Emma played on just an hour earlier. The room is quiet now, empty except for him and the ghosts of music past. He thinks about the long journey that brought him here. Detroit to Juilliard, to the military, to a janitor's closet, to this moment. It wasn't the path he planned. It wasn't the path he would have chosen. But maybe, just maybe, it was the path he needed. His fingers find the keys, and he plays softly just for himself. Not a famous piece this time, but something he composed years ago during the darkest days after Sarah's death. A simple melody, melancholic but hopeful, grieving but not defeated. He never shared it with anyone, never performed it. It was too personal, too raw. But now in this quiet moment, it feels right to play it. This is his story in musical form. Loss and persistence, sorrow and joy, the death of one dream and the unexpected beauty of what comes after. When he finishes, he hears soft applause. Emma has returned, standing in the doorway. "That was beautiful, Dad. I've never heard you play that before. I wrote it for your mother," Marcus admits. "A long time ago." Emma crosses the room and sits beside him on the bench, just like she did 6 months ago at the gala. "Tell me about her. About Mom." And Marcus does. He tells Emma about Sarah's laugh, about her compassion, about the way she believed in him, even when he'd stopped believing in himself. He tells her about the life they had, and the life they'd planned before cancer stole it away. He tells her everything, and Emma listens with the understanding of someone older than her 13 years. When he finishes, Emma leans her head on his shoulder. "I wish I could remember her better." "She lives in you," Marcus says. "Every day I see her in you, her kindness, her strength, her spirit. You're the best parts of both of us, baby girl." They sit in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Emma asks Dad, "Are you happy with how things turned out?" Marcus considers the question carefully. 6 months ago, if someone had asked him if he was happy, he would have said he was content. He had Emma. He had a job. He was surviving. That was enough. But now he has purpose. He has meaning. He's making a difference in lives, not just Emma's, but dozens of others. He plays music again, not as a career, but as a joy. He's reconnected with his past while building a future. He's visible, valued, seen. "Yeah," Marcus says, and he means it from the depths of his soul. "Yeah, baby girl, I'm happy." maybe not in the way I expected to be, but happy nonetheless. Life doesn't always give us what we plan for. Sometimes it gives us what we need instead. Emma smiles and hugs him tight. I love you, Dad. I love you too, Emma, more than anything in this world. They sit together at the piano as the afternoon light fades through the windows. Father and daughter, teacher and student. Two people who share a gift and a story and an unbreakable bond. Outside, the city continues its endless rhythm. Cars pass, people rush to and fro, life moves forward, as it always does. But inside this small recital hall, in a renovated warehouse on the south side of Chicago, time stands still for just a moment. Two people at a piano, making music, making memories, making a life worth living. 6 months ago, in a glittering ballroom, 200 people learned a lesson that would stay with them for the rest of their lives. They learned that the person you don't see might be extraordinary, that the worker you dismiss might be a genius, that job titles and uniforms and social status tell you nothing about the value of a human soul. Marcus Bennett's story spread around the world, and for a few weeks everyone was talking about the invisible people in their own lives. The cleaning staff, the security guards, the servers, the drivers. People who keep our society running, but who we rarely acknowledge, let alone appreciate. Some of that attention faded, as viral stories always do. The world moved on to the next headline, the next sensation. But for those who were there that night, and for those who truly heard Marcus's message, something fundamental shifted. Richard Carson didn't just fund a foundation. He changed how his company operates. He implemented profit-sharing programs for hourly workers. He created pathways for employees to advance, regardless of their starting position. He learned to see the people who work for him as people, not as cogs in a machine. Victoria Ashford didn't just write a check. She became an advocate for arts education, using her considerable social influence to push for better funding for music programs in public schools. The woman who once mocked a janitor now fights tirelessly to ensure that talent is recognized and nurtured regardless of economic background. And Marcus discovered that success isn't about reaching the goal you set when you were young. It's about making something meaningful out of the life you actually have. He'll never be the concert pianist he might have been at 22. But he's become something arguably more valuable. A mentor, a leader, a light in the darkness for those who might otherwise go unnoticed. The Carson Foundation for the Arts has expanded to 5 cities now, with plans for 10 more. Hundreds of young people have received instruments, instruction, and opportunities they never would have had. Some will become professional musicians. Most won't, but all of them will know that they matter, that they're seen, that their gifts are valued. Emma is thriving. She's still studying piano, and she's brilliant at it, but she's also discovered a passion for composition. She writes pieces that her father performs, and together they're working on a project to collect the stories of working-class Americans and turn them into music. She wants to be a voice for the voiceless, just like her dad became. And late at night, after Emma has gone to bed, Marcus still sits at the piano. He plays for himself, for Sarah's memory, for the pure joy of making music. He plays the pieces he loved at Juilliard, but also new compositions, improvisations, explorations. He's not preparing for concerts or recordings. He's just playing because music is who he is, and he's finally at peace with that. The truth is, we're all surrounded by Marcus Bennetts. People with extraordinary gifts, profound stories, incredible depths that we never take the time to discover. We judge based on appearances, on job titles, on social status. We make assumptions about who matters and who doesn't. And in doing so, we impoverish ourselves. Because greatness doesn't always announce itself. Genius doesn't always wear designer labels. Talent doesn't always come with credentials and pedigree. Sometimes it's hidden behind a janitor's uniform, waiting for someone to look past the surface and see the person underneath. Marcus's story isn't just about music. It's about dignity. It's about recognizing the inherent worth of every human being. It's about understanding that the person who empties your trash might have a gift that would leave you breathless if you only took the time to notice. So the next time you pass someone in a service job, someone whose labor makes your life easier, but whom you've never really seen, take a moment. Make eye contact. Say thank you. Ask their name. Acknowledge their existence, because you never know who they really are. You never know what dreams they've had to set aside, what gifts they're carrying hidden inside them, what stories would astonish you if you only bothered to listen. That janitor might be a pianist. That server might be a poet. That security guard might be a philosopher. That delivery driver might be an artist. We're all so much more than our job titles, so much deeper than our current circumstances. Marcus Bennett taught 200 people that lesson in a single evening. His story has taught millions more in the months since. The question is, will we remember it? Will we truly see the people around us? Will we recognize that every person we encounter is carrying their own burdens, nursing their own dreams, hiding their own gifts? Will we judge less and appreciate more? Will we look deeper and see truer? Will we open our eyes to the extraordinary hiding in plain sight? Marcus hopes so, because that's the real reason he played piano that night. Not for himself, not even for Emma, but for all the other invisible people out there struggling in silence, working jobs that don't reflect their worth, waiting for someone, anyone, to see them as they truly are. Every person has a story. Every soul has value. Every heart carries dreams, even the broken ones. We just have to care enough to notice. We just have to be willing to see. That's Marcus Bennett's message. That's the lesson of the janitor who shocked a billionaire's party. And if we're wise, it's a lesson we'll carry with us for the rest of our lives. Because the next time you see someone in a uniform pushing a mop or serving food or carrying packages, remember Marcus. Remember that they might be extraordinary, that they might have gifts beyond your imagination, that they might be exactly what you need if you'll only stop and truly see them. Don't judge by appearances. Don't dismiss based on job titles. Don't assume you know someone's worth by their current circumstances. Look deeper, listen harder, see better. Because we're all Marcus Bennett in one way or another. All of us carrying gifts the world hasn't recognized. All of us more than we appear. All of us worthy of being seen. That's the truth Marcus played on a piano 6 months ago. That's the song he plays every day with his life. And that's the melody we all need to hear now more than ever. Thank you for listening to Marcus's story. If it moved you, share it. Not for fame or views, but because somewhere out there is another Marcus, another invisible person with extraordinary gifts. And they need to know that someone sees them, that someone cares, that they matter. We all matter. Every single one of us. And it's time we started acting like it.